These boxes are filled with cameras that I recently purchased. They're all untested, and we're going to change that by going through each box, pulling them out, testing them, seeing what sort of shape they're in, ascertaining value, and then going out and shooting outside with a few and seeing what kind of pictures they take. Let's jump right into the first box. I couldn't fit all of my boxes in my office where I normally record, so we're filming in a little new location. And we're going to start off with this little box here and see what we got inside. Bubble wrap. We got two cameras in here, it looks like. Box down here. Got a Nikon that showed itself very quickly. And we've got something in the case here. Canon Powershot. So we have two cameras in this box. Let's go ahead and start with the Nikon. It's a AA powered digital camera. And we'll see what we got inside. There is a little bit of corrosion in the tray. So you can kind of see it here. It's not too bad, but that is something that will affect the value even if the camera power is on and works. And I've sold a bunch of these over the years. And if you're new here, I've actually been selling used digital cameras for the last 10 years, and I've sold over 20,000 digital cameras in that time. So this is my full-time job, and I really have a good time doing it. The camera does power on. There we go. Hello. There are a few dead pixels, and you can see them normally with Nikons. They're green or red, sometimes white or black. I see 3 throughout the screen. There's thousands on the screen, so normally they're just affecting the display. They don't actually affect pictures taken. Well, let's go ahead and take a picture. Flash fires. That's something I always try to test whenever I'm testing digital cameras, is to make sure that the flash fires, and in this case it does. So this camera, I would say, is in fair working condition. The lens glass itself looks good. So value on a Nikon Coolpix L20 in the condition that it's in is going to be in the $50 range. The other camera that we have here is a Canon Powershot A3000, and this camera uses Canon's NB8L battery. And this camera looks to be in pretty good shape, physically. It does have a little bit of wear on the side, as you can see there. So it does have a ding there. It is missing, are those screw? I think those are screw holes. Appears to be potentially missing some screws right here. Not good. But the camera does power on. Lens is very noisy. And that's common with Canon Powershot A3000 and A3100 models, as well as a lot within the Canon Powershot line within this era. This camera is, I believe, 10 megapixel 4x optical zoom. This was released about 14 years ago by Canon. And the value of used Canon Powershot models has gone up quite a bit over the last 2 to 3 years. This camera used to be worth about $30 to $40 in the used market, and the value of the Canon Powershot A3000 now, in used good working condition, I'll go ahead and take a few pictures with the flash just to test, is going to be in the $100 plus range. So if this thing tests good, then we ought to be in pretty good shape. And I've got some batteries and SD cards in a little container over here. That makes the testing process just a little bit easier. You'll make fun of me with the size of memory card I just put in this camera. 32 whole megabytes. It holds 12 pictures in this camera. And I'm just doing basic rudimentary testing here. I'm not doing a full scope of testing. Whenever I clean up the cameras and actually take pictures, when I list the cameras on websites like eBay, I'll do a little more thorough examination, clean up everything, clean up the lens, clean up the LCD. But for now, we're just testing and just seeing if everything is working and what's not working, so we can hopefully try to fix it at a later point. So this camera is in good working condition. which is fairly unusual. I'm gonna have to check on those 2 screws. I believe, yeah, definitely 2 screws missing there. Should be able to find 2 replacement screws to go in right here and get this camera into true good working condition. So once I do that, the value, as I said before, is gonna be in that probably $100 to $120 range. So we've got 2 working cameras out of that first box, which is excellent. Small guy here. Nice bubble wrap. And I always try to reuse bubble wrap and reuse all of the materials that I get whenever I actually list these products for sale. So we've also got 2 cameras in this lot. We have a Sony DSC W80, which is a Sony CyberShot model. It uses a Sony Memory Stick Pro, I believe. Yeah. Oh, Pro Duo. And it uses Sony's NP-BG1 battery. And it does have a battery inside. It looks like it's an original NP-BG1. And I have a Sony Memory Stick Pro Duo in here. Somewheres. There we go. Got a 256 megabyte. I'm going to throw that in for testing purposes. So this was during a period where a lot of major manufacturers were kind of fighting for the dominant memory card, so they each kind of had their own. So Olympus and Fujifilm had XD, Sony had memory stick, some other cameras like Canon uses standard SD cards. It made compatibility between brands actually quite challenging. So let's see if the battery in here works. Ooh, power's on. And does have a little bit of wear, as you can see, kind of towards the top of the camera in terms of the lettering, but otherwise appears to be in pretty decent shape. Let's see if zoom works. It's got a pretty limited optical range here, but it does appear to be working. And let's go ahead and test the flash and make sure that the camera records to the Memory Stick Pro Duo that I have in there. Flash fires. And picture is taken. All right, let's go ahead and format the memory card. And double check the lens glass just to make sure the lens glass looks great. So that looks excellent. This camera overall, I would say, is in good working condition, and if the value in the used market of the Sony DSC W80 has also gone up, like the Canon Powershot, they've kind of risen simultaneously. Value of this camera in the used market is going to be in the $75 to $100 range. Next camera, we've got a Nikon here in a nice little Nikon case with a carabiner. Oh yeah, all right. We've got a Nikon Coolpix W100, which is a waterproof Nikon digital camera that was in kind of their budget waterproof line. They don't really make these anymore. And it uses Nikon's ENL19 battery, which looks like that. But let's see if this one's got juice. If it doesn't, I believe I've got a replacement battery. This camera does power on. Cosmetically, it looks to be in really nice shape. So we've got no real issues with the battery door, no corrosion inside of the battery door. If this camera was used in salt water, for example, it's a big problem that you'll see inside the battery door here is a lot of corrosion. And while that may not affect the performance of the battery door itself, it is an indicator that salt water has leaked inside of the door. So this looks really good. Let's go ahead and try taking a picture. And just like the last Sony that we tested, the optical range on this isn't great. Most underwater digital cameras don't have very good optical ranges because the lenses are within the waterproof housings. And it did take a picture. So this camera is in good shape, and the value of the Nikon Coolpix W100 isn't great. This camera was released, I think, in the $150 to $200 price point, and the used market value of the W100 is going to be in the $75 range for this camera. So we've had 4 working cameras so far. 2 boxes, 4 cameras, 4 working cameras. So that's highly unusual for me, especially if you watched my last video where we had a 40% lemon rate or non-working camera rate, which was pretty poor and really affected the overall value of the lot. Something a little bit different I'm trying in this video is I'm not talking about individual costs that I paid for specific items, just the overall value. Let me know in the comments down below which you like better. I'm just trying this out just to see. I know a lot of you, again, aren't actual resellers, so I don't know if that information is actually valuable to you. So let me know in the comments down below. Either way. Next box is the big guy here. What do we got? What do we got? I know we've got some DSLR cameras in here, and I know we have some lenses. Backpack, Low Pro, looks like a sling. Low Pro hides their model numbers. There we go. Low Pro Slingshot 102 AW. So Low Pro bags have a little bit of value in the used market. This bag would probably sell in the used market for around 20 bucks with free shipping. So once you factor in ship costs and everything, not a lot of value, unfortunately. Especially given that when this was released, it was around $79 or $99. The value of the used market in terms of accessories, generally you see a pretty steep decline in value once the items have been used. All right, there is something in the bag. I like to go through every single pocket to see what's in there. Oh, there's a lens in this pocket. That's unusual. Canon 18-55 IS lens right here. Let's see what else we got. Normally they keep, people keep chargers and stuff in the accessory pockets, not lenses. Because it's the first thing that would get bumped whenever you run into something. Okay, ooh. Got a body here. Canon Rebel T1i body. So we've got one body, one lens. What else we got? We've got a Canon 75 to 300 millimeter lens with like 1, 2, 3 filters on it. And the last thing that I see in here is, oh, that's nice. Oh, cool. It's a contemporary Sigma 17 to 70 millimeter lens. It's a really nice zoom lens that covers a good variety of optical range that most people shoot in. So I've sold this lens in the past quite a few times for both the Nikon and the Canon mount. It's a really nice lens. Probably better for stills than for video, but still a good lens. We've got T1i 18-55, 75-300, and the 17-70. The question is, what works? Oh, there is some more stuff in here in this top piece. We've got a light scoop. We've got a tiny little tripod that wouldn't even work for this camera. USB cable, save that. AV cable, save that. Tripod mount. First things first, we need to check and see if the body works. So I'm going to flip it to an auto mode. We're going to see if there's a battery in there. This T1i uses the LPE5 battery, which is the same battery that the Canon Rebel XSI uses. And I'll go grab one real quick. Got a battery. LPE5. I'm going to put a 16 gig SD card in there. In very rare cases, that ejector mechanism for the SD card can be broken. So that's why I do try to test with SD cards. Locks into place, that's good. Well, let's see. Light comes on, camera power's on. And let's go to set to RAW. That is nice. This camera does have RAW capability. And I've done some videos on the T1i in the past. Pretty capable camera for its time. Autofocus is a little bit lacking compared to current generation models. And video capability, obviously this came out like 12, 14 years ago, so it's not going to be anything close to video capability of today's generations of mirrorless and DSLR cameras. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So I'm looking at the light through the viewfinder, and I'm just kind of checking to see if there's any scratches or debris on the focus screen in the camera, which doesn't generally affect picture quality, but it is something that a buyer would like to be aware of when they buy it, in case they wanted to change something or clean it. And in that case, it looks pretty good. So what do we want to start with first? Why don't we start with the kit 18-55 lens to test that. And once we test lens by lens, I'll kind of give a value of what we're talking about here. And this T1i body takes both EF and EFS lenses, and it is a crop sensor as it's APS-C. Flash pops. Pretty snappy, flash fires. So autofocus works. One of the biggest issues you see with the Canon 18-55 IS kit lenses is autofocus not working. So you want to make sure that it's in the autofocus mode on instead of off, just to double check. And it is working. So my overall success rate with IS lenses of this age, 10 years old plus, probably 70% work, 30% don't, maybe 80-20. So as every year goes by, and I've been doing this for so long, it kind of goes down and down with time and use. Okay, so this kit, and this is the kit lens that it originally came with. If I were to sell this Rebel T1i with the 18-55 on a website like eBay, I would probably list it in the $115 range. The prices of used DSLR cameras are coming down a little bit, and prices of compact point-and-shoot cameras are actually coming up a little bit and may have reached their peak. I'm not sure yet. Depends on the model, of course, but that's not a bad value, and always happy to have a working lens. Let's do this Canon the 75-300 with this giant amount of filters on it. Look at all those filters. Choop. That's a lot of filters. And let's go ahead and affix the body to the lens here. Oh, gotta take off the rear lens cap first. There we go. So we've got it on there, and as you can see, it actually looks pretty good. And this is the Canon 75-300 mm 3 lens, which isn't one of Canon's best lenses, but does serve a purpose at a telephoto lens at a budget price point. And as this is a budget DSLR now, it's not a terrible lens to have. It's not great for video, and when you get super long range into that 300 millimeter range, which is actually even more on this crop sensor, you need a lot of light for it to function properly. But let's take a picture, see if autofocus works. Yeah, autofocus looks good. And that looks nice. So I just took a picture of the chairs there. Whoop. And it looks good. So this lens is also working, and let me just examine the lens real quick under the light to see if we've got any dust or haze. It looks good. And any lens scratches or mold inside. And look at it in the rear as well. It looks good. I've sold hundreds of this same exact lens over the last 10 years, and it sells reliably day in and day out for right in that $90 price range. Last lens is this Sigma 17-70 with the lens hood here. Also has a couple of filters on it. And let's take a look. Lens glass looks good. This is a cool lens. And physically, it looks great, actually really nice. It's set to manual focus. I'm going to flip it to auto. Take off the lens cap, look through the rear body. That looks great. This lens clearly was not used very often based on its cosmetic condition. It shows very little wear in the rear mount. Lens glass looks excellent. Optically, it looks great. So I'm hoping that this lens will be working properly. Yeah, super fast autofocus. Looks good. So this lens is going to have a range on this APS-C body of in the 30 to 100, 105 millimeter range. So covers a pretty good variety of ground, from portrait length to a pretty good distance. Let's see if I can get a picture over there of the. Here's a picture I just took with the this lens. So really nice, and this will work on any Canon EFS body, any Canon body that accepts EFS lenses. So value of this lens when it was originally released, I want to say was in the probably $250 to $350 range. It's come down in the used market for this 17 to 70 in supreme shape like this. I would probably list this in the $200 range. So everything we've gotten so far has been working. Highly unusual, because nothing of these cameras was actually listed in used, good, or excellent condition. It's all untested, so I'm sure we'll get to a few lemons, but maybe not. Maybe this will be the series of boxes where everything's working. All right, next box. Okay, we've got 4 boxes left here. Four boxes. You're under the lights, bubble wrap. Sony, I'm not sure what model yet. Sony DSC HX200, which is a bridge camera. Love me a bridge camera. And let's see. So the most common issue that you see with these Sonys is the LCD protector, not the LCD itself, but the protector coating on the very outside of the screen. Very susceptible to getting scratches and then worn down over time. And this camera does have a little bit of that, unfortunately, but it's not too bad. And when the camera's on, it's really not very noticeable. You are actually able to very gently remove that for some models and replace it if it's something that's bothering you. But normally I don't, if it's in okay shape. This uses the Sony NP-FH50 battery. This guy right here. Okay, got another replacement battery. I know this one is charged for sure because I just used it. Yeah, power's on. Phew! So as you can see, the camera powers on. Hello. The lens moves out. Let's see if the full zoom works. And the full zoom on this camera is going to be 30x optical. So pretty good optical range on this guy. Sony made the Sony DSC HX100, this one the HX200, then the HX300, and then the HX400. And the HX400 used is selling in the $200, $225 range. The HX200 is about half of that, in the $100 to $125 range in good working condition. So I'm looking to see if we've got any black spots visible in pictures taken, which could be dust inside of the sensor. And normally you would only see that in white backgrounds. So I'm just testing that real quick. Ooh, autofocus works well. And let's see if we can zoom in on something pretty far away and see how the picture takes. So I just did a little wall art over there, and as you can see, the picture turned out great. So this camera is in good working condition, does have the screen issue, also has the articulating hinge. One of the things that you'll see if this camera was used in an area around salt water is sometimes you'll have a little bit of hesitation when you're moving this in and out, like it's gotten a little bit rusty. So that's something that I try to watch out for. But otherwise, this camera is in good working shape. I'll get the lens cleaned up And value is about 125 bucks on this. We are down to 3 boxes. Got another camera bag. Ugh. Does not smell very good. It smells pretty smoky. So honestly, one of the biggest downsides of this job is you're just like if you go to garage sales or you're buying other people's stuff all the time, you're at the mercy of wherever they stored it. And I've come across some pretty wild things like lenses wrapped in underwear, like really icky stuff. But one of the most common things I encounter is this, which is cigarette smoke. And cigarette smoke will leach into bags and into camera rubber, into camera bodies, and it can be a little bit challenging to deal with. But normally you can get that smell out. This isn't as bad as some, but it is noticeable. So we've got a few things in here. It looks like an accessories bag. So we've got some lenses and some flashes. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out. We'll set them here and then we'll take a look at them. Number one, we have this Nikon. And this is a Nikon Nikkor 50mm 1.8 f-mount lens. And I've sold a lot of these over the years. It's a manual focus lens that was made during Nikon's film camera reign. And what you'll see is a lot of oil on the blade sometimes. You'll see dust internally, haze, just the common lens issues. But this copy appears to be actually quite good. There is some surface dust, but I don't see anything internally that gives me pause. So that looks quite good so far. And I will go ahead and test that a little bit later on, but assuming it's working based on its condition, maybe we'll have a Nikon. I think there is actually. Hang on. I believe in one of these 2 remaining boxes, there's a special surprise that if it's working will be great and we'll be able to test this lens. So I'll put this one off to the side, but the value of this Nikon 50mm pancake lens is going to be about 50 bucks. If it's working. Back in its bag. It actually didn't smell like cigarette smoke, so maybe just the bag. Maybe they just threw these into a bag before they sent it. We've got a Canon 50mm 1.82 lens. I actually made a video on this lens, the prior generation, and the newest 50mm STM lens, which is a great lens, and talked about the differences between them. This is kind of an all-plastic construction. Honestly, feels a little cheap, but they made this lens, and it was in production by Canon for like 20 years. So this lens is everywhere in the used market, and it still has some value. As you can see, it's got the plastic rear mount. The one before it and the one after it had stainless steel rear mount. And it looks fair and does have some dust internally, a fair amount of dust internally. Normally that won't affect, yeah, actually more than a fair amount of dust internally. Normally that won't affect the actual picture quality. So that's one thing I do with these older lenses that haven't been used in a long time. I'll put it into manual focus and then just turn manual focus a few times because sometimes that gets stuck, and when you're in autofocus, it won't be able to move out. So that has saved me a lot of heartache over the years. But let's pull out the T1i body since I've got it handy here, and we'll use this as a tester for this completely different lot. And as you can see, it's an EF mount lens, which mounts onto this T1i body. That is also common. And this is another reason why this isn't a great video lens. This has a lot of noise. It tends to hunt a little bit when it's focusing. But it is working. So assuming there's nothing else wrong with this lens, I would say it's in fair condition. And the value of this lens on the used market would be in the $50 range for the 50mm 1.82. And the next lens is the Canon 75-300 III. This is the same exact lens as the one before, but this one doesn't look nearly as good. It also has dust like the 50mm 1.8. Okay, so this lens is also in working condition, not quite as good as that other 75-300. So the value on this one is going to be just a few bucks less, probably in the $85 range. This last lens is a Quantaray 70-210mm film camera lens, and I will test this later. These lenses actually do not have a whole lot of value. Normally what I would do with this lens if I was to sell it is actually put it in a lot and sell like 8 or 10 or 12 at a time for a really affordable price. Standalone value of this is only going to be in the $10-15 range, so it's just not worth it to have to ship it across the country standalone. So I'll go ahead and put that in a separate pile. We are down to 2 boxes. Another big one here. Packing the material off with a super old Embico bag. We have 2 cameras in here, and I don't feel anything else in the accessory pockets. We have a Canon Powershot digital camera and a Canon Rebel DSLR camera and a USB cable. I scored. I was the worst in basketball. Of all the sports that I played, there's a pretty sad story of me in basketball that I'll share very briefly. Maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I was trying to complete my 30% average free throw shooting practice, and a kid, probably the age of maybe 9 or 10, comes up and said, "Hey, you want a game?" And I was like, "Yeah, we can play for a little bit. I don't have much time." And he schooled me. So I, as an adult man, got schooled by like a 10-year-old. And that's why I don't play basketball anymore. This Rebel XT, we'll start with that, has a 1 GB compact flash card inside of it. And this is one of Canon's most popular DSLR cameras that they ever made. And it doesn't actually have the kit 18-55 lens on it. It has a 80-200mm lens. This was more commonly used with SLR film cameras, EF mount of the day. But it doesn't really affect the value if you were to sell this between the 18-55 and this lens as a kit. Not much discernible value, so I'll go ahead and leave it on there. Uses the Canon NB2L battery. I always try to include a newer replacement battery in an older digital camera if I can, just because you know that you won't have to charge it 20 times to get 10 pictures. It'll actually hold a little bit of charge. So put that in. It does charge up, or it does power on. And this camera does not have video capability, just photos. Also does not have live view. You have to actually look through the viewfinder to use it. This camera in working condition, I'm going to test. Autofocus works. Is going to have a value of around $75 with a charger and a USB cable. At least that's what I sell them for. And they a lot of the times will go to beginners or students and are used in beginner photography classes. So this camera, will give it another lease on life and sell it for around that price point. And hopefully somebody can get some good use out of it. And the other camera that was in that box is a Canon Powershot SX10. This is a AA powered digital camera that is a bridge camera with a 20x optical zoom. Let's take a look at the, it's got some sticker residue on the bottom. And you can use like Gooby Gone, or I use, it's called Motsenbrockers. It's a kind of a more natural solution that will get rid of a lot of that sticker residue. You still have to work on it and apply quite a bit of pressure to get that sticker residue off, but it'll come with time. And fortunately, someone left batteries in there, but they have not corroded. Still, I won't use them because they're probably dead. There is actually a bit, oh, there is corrosion. I take it back. Normally the corrosion that you'll see, if you see it immediately and the batteries looked good, would be actually on the top. This one has corrosion at the bottom of the tray. We get a fair amount of that corrosion out, and let's go ahead and see if the camera power's on. Got the double A's in there. Power button's up here. Does power on. There's the LCD. Hello, hello. Oh, and it's articulating. Hello, hello. Let's see. So the lens appears to be moving normally. Let's go ahead and try taking a picture. Picture takes. Let's see if we can get the flash to fire. And it's a manual pop on top of the camera, so just popped it up. Yep. Okay. So this camera appears to be in decent working condition. The LCD screen does have wear, and that's very common from Canon with use. You'll often see this wear pattern where the protective coating has kind of worn off a little bit, leaving a lot of what looks like tiny micro scratches on the screen. So that, again, will affect the value somewhat, but value on this isn't great to begin with. The Canon Powershot SX10 is going to have a value of in the $40 to $50 range on the used market. This is the last box, and I think we've got the best for last, if I recall correctly, because this box has one mediocre item in it, and I believe it's got probably the highest value camera, easily the highest camera value of anything we've looked at so far. One, two. Okay, first one in this old vintage low pro bag. What I do with a lot of the bags is actually donate them. They take up a lot of space whenever I'm shipping out cameras. So sometimes I'll include them in a kit, but a lot of times I'll batch them up and then donate them to a local charity shop, and people can use them to pack their lunches. They can use them obviously for camera equipment, for electronics. Sometimes they get laptop bags, donate that way. Just kind of trying to pay it forward and keep the stuff out of landfill. We have a Canon US300. I had no idea there was a film camera in here. And this was released by Canon somewhere in the probably mid-90s. It comes with a 28 to 80 millimeter lens. And I would assume that the batteries don't work anymore. This uses two CR2 batteries, which I actually have. So we won't be able to film test this because I don't have any film, but we can actually test it and see if autofocus and the flash are working. Two little CR2 batteries. They're just going to go in the bottom here. This is a very delicate battery door. So what I see with these older film cameras often is that the battery tray door is either gone or damaged and held together by tape. So it's nice to see that that one is functioning. So let's go ahead and take off the lens and make sure everything looks good there. Looks good. So that's what it looks like. Put it back on. So you can actually use this lens with the Canon Rebel T1i that came out 20 years after this camera did. So that's what I really enjoy about Canon, is they've made a lot of their items really practical to use and hand-on from generation to generation. Okay, flash pops and flash fires. So, and autofocus is working as well. We'll do one more. Okay, so this camera appears to be in good working condition, not film tested. But I sell the EOS 300 probably a couple times a month, and the value of the EOS 300 on the used market is in the $75 to $80 range in good working condition. Another thing you want to watch out for, though you can clean, is a super tacky grip. And this one is not bad at all. Oh, 2 cameras in here. Okay, and a generic flash. Okay, let's start with the Panasonic that I see in here. We've got a generic flash, just a Digital Concepts. Not much value in this. This was often thrown in by a lot of camera shops to bump up the values of their cameras a lot and make more money. So I'll test this to see if it's working. Yeah, it looks okay battery-wise. If I run across a camera where the internal flash isn't working and this flash is working, then I'll pair it with it as a hot shoe flash and get the kit into working condition so I don't have to discard the camera. So we'll save that. I'll leave this one in the bag. Oh no, Panasonic DMC FZ28 in silver. Sold many of this camera, and it is a good bridge 18x optical camera. However, we've got a completely broken screen, and unfortunately that's not just the protector, it's actually the screen, and the glass is about to come loose there. So it also has a ton of wear, so this camera was heavily used. And unfortunately, even in good working condition, the value of this is 40 to 50. So in this condition, there's no SD card. Unfortunately, this is really our first bust. Ahaha! We have a Nikon D750. And getting a premium DSLR camera like this in an untested lot is pretty unusual. Very unusual, in fact. The question is, does it work? Physically, let's take a look at this beauty here. Physically, it actually looks to be in quite decent shape. Missing the viewfinder cap. Very common. But I have a battery, so let's check. This uses the Nikon ENL15 battery. I've got a replacement here. Let's see if it powers on. The top does. So camera powers on. Okay. I pulled a lens out of my collection here, a Nikon 50mm 1.8G lens, just for testing purposes. Let's affix it to the body here. Let me see if I can take a picture. Let's take a picture of this Nikon case. Okay, nice. So this is what we're looking at. Taking a picture there. So the camera does appear to be working fine after testing it. Which, when you get into a premium camera like this, that was once a premium camera, to be in a lot like this, you know, you never know. A lot of the times it's in that lot for a reason, like it's broken. Or it stopped working and they forgot why, and then they just got rid of it. So this camera appears to be in good shape. Some dust behind the focus screen, visible through the viewfinder. I am going to check the shutter count of this real quick, which you can do on a variety of websites. I use camerashuttercount.com because it covers a wide variety of models, and at this point at least it's still free. Okay, I just looked up this camera on shuttercount.com for shutter count information. It's 38,000. So a lot of life still left in this, and the prices of this are going to vary depending upon condition a lot, as well as shutter count. And with that shutter count in decent working condition, you're looking at a value of around $525 for this D750 body. And I might just have to shoot with this for a little bit. It looks really fun to shoot with. The last camera I shot with, kind of in this vein, was the D800. So that's it. We went through every single box that was right here and run the gamut from a $10 lens to a nice, really solidly built D750 body and everything in between. Please subscribe to my channel if you aren't already, and you'll get updated whenever I release a new video. I've been trying to release new videos once every couple days now, and that it's proven to be a little challenging sometimes, but the more interest I have, the more likely I am to do it. And if you like this kind of content, check out this video here, which is a very large single lot unboxing that I did, mainly of digital point and shoot cameras. And you get an idea, if you're new to the channel, if you like this kind of content, that might be a fun video to watch.